Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here, joined by my good buddy Stacey Patton of the Pod Strickland, and the Believe Knicks show. The Knicks have moved on to round two. Knicks in 5. They beat the Cavs in 5 games, 106-95. We got so much to talk about. Mitchell Robinson's dominant play in this game and throughout the series. RJ Barrett playing fantastic again. Emmanuel Quickly coming back with a vengeance and finally getting some threes to fall. Unfortunately, Julius Randle injuring himself, but fortunately, Obi Toppin stepping up huge in his stead, and much more, including maybe talking about if this team can make the Eastern Conference Finals. Next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, and I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you guys making us part of your daily routine, especially if you're an everydayer. Make sure that you hit that subscription bell on YouTube or the auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at strict.land. And I have a very special guest to break down this Knicks Game 5 win. Like I said, Stacey Patton. You might know him as at Stacey Patton89 on Twitter. You also might know him from Pod Strickland, or from his writings on The Strickland, or from his other show, the Believe Knicks show. So lots of places that my buddy Stacey has carved out some time today. Stacey, is such a simple first question. How are you feeling after this big Knicks win? First appearance in the second round in 10 years.
I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'm not on cloud 9. I'm not on cloud 10. I'm on cloud 11, as in 11 offensive rebounds for a guy you might know by the name of Mitchell Robinson. Yeah,
as
cloud
in
11.
Another 11, Jalen Brunson, if I may.
Exactly. And shout out 11s of Christmas past, Frank Ntilikina. Not so much, but yeah.
We just found a way to work Frank Ntilikina into the Game 5 victory podcast. This is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty amazing game for the Knicks. I mean, I tell you what, I went into this one, and look, I had all the confidence in the world in the Knicks, going into this game and everything, but I fully expected the Cavs to be in this game like a wounded animal. You know what I mean? Like backs against the wall. I expected them to come out clawing like a Wolverine, just trying to like scrap out this home win and at least give themselves a shot. And the Knicks, like they have for each of the last 3 games, just bludgeoned them like just over and over, and they just smothered them on defense. Never let them get anything going on because they were just like the Knicks were infesting the passing lanes, getting their hands on everything, making it so that the Cavs could never get a clean pass off. And then on top of that, Mitchell Robinson and others, but honestly, mostly Mitchell Robinson, just absolutely destroyed them on the other end, would not let them get a single defensive rebound to get things going the other way. And the Knicks just generated so many more opportunities for themselves. I mean, what was like your overall takeaway from this game and from this series, really? Because now we can just reflect on the series because it's over.
I mean, I haven't seen too many teams with this kind of depth. They don't have the star power at the top, but yeah, I mean, where do you even start, right? They lost an all-star at halftime. An all-star was playing really well, 13-6 in the first half, and I think that's 6 assists that honestly understates Randall's impact. Like, he had a tough few games. He had a tough, first 4 games. He received a lot of criticism, and I think deservedly so after game 4. And he came out tonight and he was awesome. It was really unfortunate to see him get that injury. But just plug in Obi Toppin. What he does? He gets a couple of dunks, hits a 3, running the floor constantly, has a couple of deflections on defense. He had a pull up midi. Like, Toby was just like, "Oh, you're gonna give me minutes? I'll show you what I can do." And we could just plug that guy in. And like, there's been so much consternation over how many minutes should Obi get, like, whatever the future holds. And, if it comes to that, I'll be sad to see Obi go, but I think he's going to thrive wherever he goes. He's going to have a long career. But man, just to have a guy like that you can just pull off the bench, it's like, oh, we lost our all-star. No big deal. This guy was getting 14 minutes a year, 14 minutes a game, maybe 14 minutes a year. It wasn't that much. And he can just hop in and do that. But I think Mitchell Robinson was maybe the biggest story of this series. He had 11 off the Cavs. I don't know if the stats are updated. I could be looking, but the Cavs had 4 offensive rebounds as a team tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Mitchell Robinson nearly tripled that. I mean, there's team rebounds and stuff, but Mitchell Robinson nearly tripled that. He had 22 defensive rebounds. He had half of that just on the offensive glass alone. It was an incredible performance. I think that and the thing is that those offensive rebounds, like, people have said that in the past, where I've brought this up, on Pod Strickland when talking with Schwinn, and Schwinn himself has, I think we've all been up and down on Mitchell Robinson. He can be a little bit quirky. He'll have some interesting posts on social media. Schwinn at one point was saying, he might be the best offensive rebounder, but if he gets 5 rebounds a game, that's still 5 extra possessions. It's not game changing. But I think one thing that has been really evident this season, especially this series, is it's not just those 5 offensive rebounds. If that keeps Allen closer to the rim, if that makes him hesitate on, contesting a Jalen Brunson floater, right? Or if that makes him focus more on Mitch and it allows Josh Hart to crash the boards, or allows Julius Randle to crash the boards, that's an impact. That goes beyond just the offense. Now, when you get 11, you don't need that extra impact, but it's more than even those 11 offensive boards. So I thought that he was insane tonight, and he dominated a series against the guy who, before the series, I did a ranking of all the players, and I had Jared Allen, I think, at 6th, and Mitchell Robinson at 7th in this series. And there's people saying, no, Mitchell Robinson might have been the 2nd or 3rd best player in this series, in a series that included the Cavs' big 4 and a center at his same position who, for a long time, you can go back to the Nets days, people have been saying Jared Allen's better, right? Can do a little bit more on offense, has a little baby floater, still a really good defender. And Mitchell Robinson owned this series. And I don't think Jared Allen even played that particularly bad. I think Cavs fans would probably disagree with me. He was just incredible. And a throwback team. It's just like, when he was a rookie and his second year, the big thing with Mitch was that he's that long and he can protect the rim, but he can also play on the perimeter. And it's like, that's really special. This is lots. Rim protectors are not dime a dozen, but it's not the most special thing. But we had focused as a mobility. I think highlight his rookie year. We actually contested a 3. I think he got a piece of it, fell down. They got the offensive rebound. He got up and blocked a shot at the rim. Right, it was a very Mitchell Robinson play. And I think this series, that's been probably not something people are going to focus on, but he did a terrific job. I think in game 1, Donovan Mitchell had a big game. He had 38, and Mitch was playing pretty conservatively in drop. He's been playing at the level, both mid-range and 3-point. And, Donovan Mitchell's going to hit some shots, but he's been way better. He has been contesting everything. And his impact on those perimeter players is something that probably isn't going to get talked as much about as his rebounding and just his raw rim protection. But it was massive. And you're seeing kind of everything we wanted from Mitch. And he was in this, he's going 1 for 2, sometimes 2 for 3, he does not take a 3-pointer. That would be the next step, right? The Instagram Mitch. But he's been the free throws, he's hit some good ones where it's not making you cringe every time he gets an offensive rebound or doesn't score. So he was just incredible all series. He's not the only one. There's a lot of other guys we got to talk about, but you mentioned him, and I think that I think you're 100% right. He was just, if not, I think it's between him and RJ Barrett for the most valuable player on the floor tonight. But over the course of the series, he's up there, and he outplayed a dominant Cleveland front line that everyone else thought would have an advantage coming into the series.
Yeah, and you got to consider too, even even on those free throw attempts, like even in this game, he only went 1 of 4, but there's something to be said. And they were not particularly pretty, but there's something to even be said for the fact that even if he's not hitting the free throws, he's getting opposing bigs in foul trouble because he forces them to foul the crap out of him when he goes back up with those offensive rebounds, if he opts to go back up with them instead of passing out, because you know, if you just leave him there, I mean, he's like automatic as far as just a quick little up and under layup or, a dunk or whatever. Like if you give him, you know, any space at all and don't foul him, he's just going to put it right back in and get 2 points. And so no matter what, there's some sort of benefit to him getting that offensive rebound no matter what, even if you don't necessarily get points. But I mean, he got his points in this one too. Just total stat line to go over real quick: 13 points, 6 of 9 shooting, only 1 of 4 from the free throw line, but does not matter. 18 boards, 11 of those offensive, so 7 defensive boards. Also 5 stocks, 3 blocks, 2 steals. Those all came in various applications. He had a great just like face down block of Jared Allen on the low block. And some other plays just kind of contesting guys on the inside. But the other thing too, and this was a stat I just had to write down, and maybe this could just be our capper here before we move to our next segment and talk about RJ Barrett, because he was fantastic as well. But I wrote in my notes that he just treated the Cavs bigs like children in this game. Mitch had 18 rebounds in 36 minutes. Jared Allen and Evan Mobley combined had 13 rebounds in 75 minutes combined between the two of them. If
he nearly had as many offensive rebounds as they had total, right?
Yeah,
11 offensive rebounds.
Almost had as many offensive boards as they had total rebounds, those guys. So I'm with you. I'm ready to put the debate to bed right at this particular second. Like, Mitch might not have as much offensive skill or whatever, or as much offensive versatility as Jared Allen, but 10 times out of 10, I'm taking him over Jared Allen at this point, because he just offers the best dominant NBA skill out of those two guys by a long shot, because he is, I feel confident in saying now, the best offensive rebounder in basketball at this point.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go right ahead if you want to get one more point.
So during the regular season, I looked these up this morning, and I didn't realize how prescient it would be.
You know what? You got a really good stat, right?
Yeah. So
all right.
He was second.
Wait. Let's save that. I'm told I need to have a good tease to go to the next segment. So why don't we tease this?
Got a great stat for you guys. So
we've got a great Mitchell Robinson stat coming up in just 1 second. First, I do just have to remind you guys that today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. And for a championship team, maybe that's the Knicks now. It's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle, and every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. Well, without any further ado, Stacey, let's hear this amazing Mitchell Robinson stat. You hyped this up to me before we started recording too. I'm pretty excited myself.
Yeah. So first of all, going back to the regular season, Mitchell Robinson finished second in the league in offensive rebounds per game. I realize rate stats are good, but if you go by rate stats, you'll often get some low sample guys. Can you guess who's first, by the way, Alex? I think you can probably guess. But
first in per
offensive
game?
rebounds per game, yeah.
Steven Adams?
Yeah, it's Steven Adams. Steven Adams averaged by the way, really incredible game. Memphis had a big win tonight, but it's clear they've missed him, especially against Anthony Davis. I personally think that would be a very different series if he was playing. Mitch was second at 4.5. Next was Capella at 4.0. But if you look at how many of those were contested, so the contested offensive rebounding percentage for Steven Adams was 72%. Mitch was at 81.6. So 81.6 of those rebounds are contested. which also means that, like, since the Knicks have so many interior shots, they're not a huge perimeter team. A lot of those are just him just bullying dudes, right? So
Mhm.
I've made the case in the past that the Nick, Brunson being so great at getting to the mid range and getting to that short floater area where the Knicks kind of thrive and have prioritized, and quickly's done that. RJ's added that to his game. He's been much better at it this series than he was this regular season. But 82% is by far higher than any of the people on this list. For the playoffs, in terms of offensive rebounding, Mitchell Robinson is number one. He's grabbing 4.5 offensive rebounds a game. Funny enough, actually, number two is Paul Reed, who's doing it in 16.5 minutes at 4.3 rebounds. I think that's boosted by that last game he played without Embiid, but hey, that was enough to disqualify Emmanuel Quickly's sixth man candidacy, right? But and then Nikola Jokic and Gobert are the other guys at the top of that list. So Mitchell Robinson has a case as the best offense. This is not just he's a great offensive rebounder. Do you remember, Alex, when he was a rookie and how terrible he was at blocking out?
Mm-hmm.
He,
Yeah, it was.
go ahead, sir.
I was just say it was like all just pure talent and length when he was a rookie. That was
But
it. Like,
yeah, he used to give up a lot of offensive rebounds because he contested everything and he couldn't box out.
mhm.
Elite offensive rebound or defensive rebounder now, and he can still protect. I think that's like probably that's one thing where, like, as much as we like to clown Nets fans about the Claxton love, the fact that, like, being able to rebound on, like, to being able to be a plus on the defensive glass in contest shots is really hard. It's part of what makes guys like Gobert and Capella probably underrated. It's part of what's made Mitch such a great player. And it's part of why I do think Claxton is really good. But he did all of those things, and I mean, yeah, like, he doesn't give you much, and he's a lob threat. That's all you need, really, right,
Mhm.
from that position. And I think I'd be curious to this: how much do you think it's helped him? And then we can definitely move off of Mitch because I could probably talk talk about him for 2 hours. But there's a lot of guys on this team to talk about. But how much do you think it's helped him with the fact that they have another guy behind him who is a starter level big who's been playing awesome this series? I'm talking about Mitch a lot. I don't mean to discount at all the contributions of Isaiah Hardenstein. Um, Last game when Julius Randle was, like, kind of in a muck, he gave up a drive down the baseline to Isaac Okoro that should have been a dunk by all rights. Hardenstein not only had, like, maybe one of the most highlight worthy plays of the series with a block way above the rim, turned into a quick outlet to RJ Barrett. How much do you think that's helped that, like, they have much more flexibility and, like, subbing Mitch out, like, letting him keeping him fresh all game?
I mean, it definitely helps him. Like, it helps him as far as staying fresh, but I also think there's probably some sort of mental benefit to the fact of him knowing, like, okay, I could play a little more free, although he still plays in control. I mean, they noted it on the broadcast today, but like going into this game, he only had 7 fouls all series. He ends up with 4 in this game, but I think that I think they were smart fouls. Like, I didn't think he was doing it just to prevent like a guaranteed bucket, and in some cases, like a momentum shifter. Like at one point, like the Cavs were kind of starting to go on a mini run, and like he fouled, I think it was Mitchell, just kind of like slow things down a little bit. So he was smart with his fouls in this game, but like I feel like it's got to have some sort of mental benefit for him as far as knowing that if he does get a little too crazy, that there's someone that can back him up there. But also just being able to replace him and then have him have fresh legs as much as he needs to is great too. Although I gotta say, like, his conditioning is great right now. I gotta give him so much props. Like, for as much crap as I'll say rightfully, like as a fan base gave him last year, like he clearly last year prioritized getting like freaking yoked like over cardio shape and whatever. And it was tough coming off a foot injury and everything, obviously, but whether it's him or his trainer or whatever, like they spent way too much time building out the muscle of his body and not enough on like, let's just like work on cardio and make sure that you could play like 36 minutes and not be tired, because being tired leads to fouling and all that stuff. And, instead, like we saw by the end of last year, he already looked in so much better shape. And then this year, he's just been phenomenal as far as that's concerned. I mean, he can play like this game, like 36 minutes and, not look winded at all. There was certain points where I looked up and they put the camera on him like in the third quarter, fourth quarter. And it was times where, previously if Mitch would hit like 30 minutes, you'd start to see him huffing and puffing a bit and, looking a little out of breath. And then, the mistakes come with that. And he looked totally fine. He's just like standing there, good to go, normal breathing, like just doing his thing. But it is helpful that on the times when he does need a little bit extra wind like that you do have an Isaiah Hartenstein there to make that happen. But yeah, everything about what he does now is just forceful. He's so like in control of everything that he does from what it seems like. There's just none of those like out of control moments. Like he brought up his rookie year, and I remember this back in like his rookie year, sophomore year. It was all just like it was like running on pure talent, like he wasn't.
Which
He
was
didn't.
part of why we thought he could be so good, because he didn't really
Yes.
know what he was doing, and he was still very impactful, like
Yeah.
positively. But yeah, there was clearly another level of reach, and he's getting close to it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I can't wait to see how he evolves in the next round too. But I think before we move on to talk about RJ Barrett and some of the other players that had fantastic games, Emmanuel Quickly. I know, Stacey, you're a huge Emmanuel Quickly guy, so I know you're going to be looking forward to talking about that, as well as some of the other players, Jalen Brunson, that had great games as well. But before we do that, I just got to remind everybody today's show is brought to you by Ibotta, and groceries, school shopping, getting a little something for yourself. You're already doing it. So why would you not want to get cash back for it? You can with Ibotta. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real cash back. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Or you could use your cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. A typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022 than the beginning of the year due to inflation. Isn't that the truth? You could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta, or even more depending on how much you use Ibotta. And you can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. So right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. So just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED. And I also, important message here. The Knicks are on to round 2, in case you haven't heard. And so don't miss out on local coverage. You can catch every moment of the Knicks hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Knicks, and you can do that. Just like you get your nice local podcast, you can get a nice local broadcast as well if you want to listen. But what we got to talk about right now, Stacey, is RJ Barrett. And I mean, I think you have a very strong case. You said he could be the player of this game. I'm totally with you. I loved everything that Mitch did, and Mitch's impact on dominating the board stood out to me a little more. But RJ kind of quietly just did whatever the heck was needed of him in this game, just like he has for the last 3 games. Had 21 points, shot 7 of 13 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Also had 4 boards, 4 assists, and a steal. What stood out to you the most from RJ's game in this one?
Just how in control he seemed. Every time he got the ball, and I think I'll give Tibbs credit too, it wasn't a whole lot of ISO from the top of the key. It was some action, amazing, created a lot in Reed, but he was putting him, it was side pick and rolls where RJ has thrived since he was a rookie, right? And the Cavs have made a concerted effort to force him right, and he has killed them. You can't force RJ Barrett right now. And this probably hasn't been the case for over a year. That's not going to be the answer. Last game, there were a couple of those, he had that one fadeaway over, I think it was Osmond Allen, where you're like, do I like that shot? No, but it went in and he's feeling it, so I'll live with it. Today it was just he could get to the rim. He had a variety of finishes, and they were just always off balance. And RJ was always in control. He was always dictating, "This is how I'm going to finish, and you have to commit first, and I'm going to be able to just play off that." And you're just I've never seen him that in control. And even on some of his heaters, he'll get downhill, he'll get to the rim, but just being able to manipulate his passing has been incredible all series. I think the best pass he's had in a long time. I don't know. I don't want to say his career, but certainly this series and probably a long time. He had one that quickly actually missed. It wasn't an assist, but he had one last game where he looked off the defender, got them to help down. I don't know if it was Mitch or Hart, but cutting to the rim, and he threw a no look, just dart cross court to IQ. Gave IQ a wide open corner three that he's going to hit probably 50-60% of the time. Didn't hit that one, but it was not the like read and react pass. That was a LeBron level pass. That's what I said on Twitter, and I'll stick to that because the way he manipulated and used his height and vision and the whole package and the accuracy that he has. And it's worth noting, like, you know, his passing stats aren't always great. He doesn't pass much out of drives, or he hadn't this season. This series, I think he's done a much better job. He doesn't always pass out of drives, you know, misses some reads. But when he does pass, he's very accurate. I think his passing efficiency, according to B-Ball Index, was like an A minus this year, or an A. So like a lot of his passes do turn into assists, which there's multiple factors there. I'm not gonna sit here and say that RJ has been great all season because there's been a lot left to be desired. But the last 3 games, I mean, I said this I think on the Discord that we have with the Strickland. It really feels like Neo when he like sees the Matrix and he's just like just the agents can't do anything. Like there was nothing Cleveland could do to stop him. And I didn't even talk about, but the second thing, so I'll talk about, he just seemed way more in control in offense. It always seemed like he was a step ahead of the defense, which is not something I would have said for most this year. You know, you've seen it in flashes. It seems to, I do think that I said coming into the series that this was a good matchup for him. I think one team he's always thrived against is the Miami Heat because they have a shooting guard who's a little bit weaker on defense than Tyler Hero. So they either end up, you know, blitzing and trying not to switch onto him, which gives him 4-on-3s, or he gets to just attack downhill against a smaller guard. So Garland is a little bit like that. I do think Garland's a better defender than Hero, and I actually think Garland was a much better defender than I expected in the series. But I think it was a similarly good matchup, but he made his reads. He was just in control consistently in a way that I haven't seen as much, at least since the second year. But really not for more than a game at a time. Like 3 games in a row in the playoffs, that's an eye-opening thing, and that should. And if this is the RJ Barrett the Knicks have, that is a game changer, not just for these playoffs, but for the long-term trajectory of the franchise. But I also want to talk about, you know, there's lots of other things. I think Knicks fans who have been critical of him could have lived with a lot of some of the offensive struggles. By the way, he was hitting his threes today. I don't know if he shot from 3, but he looks very
shot 2 for 4. 2 for 4.
That'll do, Pig. He was really good from 3. I thought last game there were a couple of daggers that he had that were in and out. I think the Knicks, because they just get every offensive rebound now, apparently got those rebounds. So it wasn't like a big thing. He also had another 3 get wiped off last game because Josh Hart got called for what I think was a phantom travel call.
Yeah.
But it's also like all of those things in this regular season that maybe we weren't seeing consistently were palatable. His defense, like we've seen this guy lock up Kawhi Leonard, we've seen him lock up John Morant, and we just didn't see that all season. And it was everything. It wasn't just on ball. I thought he did a terrific job on Darius Garland all series, with the exception maybe a little bit of game 2. But like RJ's problems have mostly been in help defense, and I think he was put in more in that position. But game 3, 4, or 5, and game 1, 2, his help defense was impeccable. He made like a big, I think, thorn in the side of a lot of Knicks fans has been that his transition defense wasn't great. There were so many times I counted today where, he was getting back and contesting. He had a really nice rotation towards Isaac Okoro. That was an extra effort. Like, this is almost sunk in, but I have to at least try. That forced Isaac Okoro to kick it out. Unfortunately, they got a 3 out of it, but that was an extra effort play that you haven't always seen from RJ Barrett this season. Transition defense, he was good. Help defense, he was good. And he was in Darius Garland's grill whenever he was guarding him. Did a good job on Mitch. It was everything you wanted. Helped out on the glass. It was everything that RJ Barrett we've asked him to do and wanted more of, he did at an extremely high level today. And that's why I say that, Mitch in his role was just incredibly efficient, and that was a game-changing impact. And I don't want to isolate it to offensive rebound. As I said, offensive rebounding, and I think that it's a little bit of a tangent, but before the series, a lot of Cavs fans said, the Knicks offense rebound well and they don't turn the ball over. So just keep them off the glass and you're fine. But it's all related, right? The Knicks, why do they rebound well? Partly because Mitchell Robinson is a beast, but partly because Jalen Brunson can get to the paint at will. Julius Randle can get to the paint. RJ Barrett can get to the paint. Quickly can get to the paint. And so you have to make a decision. You love to pull Jared Allen in and dissuade those shots. Well, then you have something else. So it's all related, right? But just in terms of what RJ Barrett did, everything he did, it was everything you could have asked for, and that's why I say it was on such diverse skills. He's very diverse and unique set of skills. Shout out Liam Neeson. That I would say, yeah, like I thought he was the best player on the floor today. I thought he was the best player on the floor last game.
Yeah. He truly has turned things around in a big way. And what was impressive, I think, was that even before, first off, the defense, yes, has been really good, which makes a huge difference. Like we kind of saw that with Quickly throughout this series, which we could talk about Quickly, in just a sec here as well. But like Quickly shots weren't falling, and yet our colleague from the Strickland today, Jeff Rasmussen, Frank Barrett, wrote a really good preview of this final game, but then also, how things could look going forward, and noted that like Quickly by far when he was on the floor, the Knicks had the best defensive rating, and he wasn't making shots at all, so he was impacting the game that much that it didn't matter if he was making his 3-pointers prior to this game, because no matter what, when he's on the floor, he's making an impact. And it was a rarity to be able to say that about RJ Barrett this year. Where it was like pretty much if he wasn't making the shots, then stuff wasn't going well for him or for the Knicks, because it's like if he's taking a decent, diet of shots, which he pretty much always does, and he's not making a ton of them, and he's not playing great defense, then like you're basically like not to throw this out there, but like you're more or less like Monta Ellis or something, you know what I mean? Like you're just out there sopping up shots, like and not really contributing anything of positive value if you're not making anything, because you're losing it all on the other end. You're losing it all in the hustle plays and everything else. And like credit to Tibbs and credit to the Knicks. They were so well prepared and had this Cavs team so well scouted. They were like, it was almost, as you said, if we want to use like a Matrix reference again, it was almost like they were just seeing things before they were happening, and were able to just glitch their way into passing lanes at various times, because they were like, they had the Cavs so well scouted out as far as where the pass was going to go, what the action was going to be, who would need to be there, from what point of the court to get that pass. Because it felt like, and I mean, I know this isn't the actual number, but it felt like they got their hands on 50% of the passes that came out in this game. You know what I mean? It was just every time that a
That was
Cav,
everybody too. Brunson too was a big
yeah.
part of that. He had a lot of deflections, and
Oh yeah, that's like a team wide thing. That goes out to RJ, Brunson, Hart, as usual, which Hart is always on top of that.
Quickly,
Quickly, the centers, like every person that touched the floor. Obi did it too. Everybody that touched the floor for the Knicks in this game got hands on the basketball and managed to force some turnovers, as was evidenced by the fact that they wound up with only 6 steals somehow, but that feels like a low number. I refuse to believe that's the truth. But at any rate, yeah, it was a fantastic game for RJ, and really kind of brought it full circle just how good he's been these last few games. To see him then finally, now it's like now it all came together, and he had the 3-point shot hitting too, and that was sort of like the last piece where you're like, all right, man, like now you look, especially in a game where Julius Randle went down before halftime. Like now, RJ, you look like the second star out there right now. And that's awesome to see him making that development right before our eyes. I do want to talk now about Emmanuel Quickly, though, who similarly kind of had his, I mean, look, okay, I'm going to call it a turnaround. The shot making was maybe slightly better than it's been recently. It still was not perfectly ideal. He shoots 5 of 15 overall, 3 of 10 from 3, but 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He was doing great at generating opportunities in the paint. Was doing his usual diet of floaters and stuff as well, which even if they don't go in, creates a great offensive rebounding opportunity for a guy like Mitchell Robinson, who's absolutely dominating the paint in the game. And just all in all, had a pretty solid outing on his way to 19 points. I know you're one of the biggest Emmanuel Quickley fans I know, so I'm sure you're looking forward to gushing a little bit about this performance, even if it wasn't perfect. But like, I thought the Knicks really needed this from him. Like, he made a couple of key shots in the first half when things were closer in this game. He played great defense, like everybody has, and he just did all the little things that Emmanuel Quickley always does, but made a few shots on the side, and hopefully, like those few shots on the side turn into a bunch of shots that he can make in this next series, because I think as these playoffs go on, if the Knicks hope to perhaps even advance past the next round, they're going to need like vintage Quickly, as Clyde might say, like some vintage regular season Quickly going forward.
Yeah, it's funny that we can say vintage at this point about
Yeah.
a 23-year-old player.
Yeah, right.
By the way, that's a sign of the new Knicks, right? Like, it used to be that RJ Barrett and depending on how you want to count it, Mitchell Robinson or RJ Barrett broke the second contract curse. I think you'd probably agree. I think Emmanuel Quickly, it's a matter of time before he does, which this season or next season. To be honest, like I thought his best game was actually game 3, where I think he was the most under control. I think he was a little bit. It seemed to me, honestly, today, like they knew Grimes was out, and they were like, "If you're open, we want you shooting the ball. We want you to score. We don't want you probing. Like, your role is not to probe. We're gonna have you out there with Brunson." Like, I think that was how he played, at least. So on that note, like he got up threes. He took 10 3-pointers, which is what you'd want. Nobody else on the team. He only hit 3 actually. But he stretched the defense. I think if this was a repeated thing, you'd probably want to say he probably could have pump faked a little bit more and gotten to the rim. But I thought, he had a nice floater early. He was very. I think that he was very aggressive looking for a shot, and I think that's the role they wanted him to play tonight. I would imagine that Grimes being out had something to do with it, and the fact that they just haven't generated a ton of good 3-point looks, and they want to, give some breathing room to Randall and Brunson. But I think this offense, as a, the Hawks series, I don't count too much as like his first playoff series, at least on offense. He wasn't, he was kind of there to soak up minutes, but he wasn't a featured player. This is his first series as like a key rotation player. Played 29 minutes tonight. Has generally been getting about 20 minutes or more in this series. I thought that, his offensive process was up and down. He had some nice plays, even like game 1, he really struggled, but he had a beautiful pocket pass to Julius. He's had some nice passes. He does a good job of pushing the ball to the floor. I think he's good at recognizing when he has an advantage in transition and drawing a foul. I don't think it's a finished project, but it's worth noting. Like 2 years ago, Jalen Brunson had his worst series, like a terrible series against the Clippers, right? I don't think Quickly was that bad. I thought there were lots of signs of life. And to your point, like, yeah, they needed a guy that was willing to take those threes. A couple of them were late clock grenades. I think he's still settling in and figuring out his best way to attend an elite defense. One thing I cannot question is how incredible his defense was. I think that, his impact stats, his advanced stats have always been great on defense because he's an incredible help defender, right? He has the recovery speed to do what Tibbs wants from his help defenders in kind of play that, it was originally the Reggie Bullock role here. Guys like Luol Deng and Jimmy have done it in the past, where Quickly is, tasked with aggressive help at the nail or rotations, but he also has to scramble out the shooters. His wingspan and quickness and his intelligence, I'm going to say not IQ, just to A, avoid the pun, and B, because I don't really love that term. But he fits what Tibbs wants to do from a defensive perspective for that role so well. But I think what a lot of people have underestimated is, he's kind of small. Like, it's one thing to be a really smart help defender and he gambles for steals or he floats or whatever. But on ball, he can be attacked. He was incredible on Darius Garland. When it started, Alex.
Mhm.
I'll ask you if you noticed the difference. In game two, there was a possession where the Knicks were reeling, but they had just started to come back. They brought the lead down to 17, and then they miss an open three. Garland has it on a fast break. Quickly's on his heels, and he lets Garland get into a pull-up three, which at that point,
Mhm.
Garland was just in NBA Jam mode, and he made it. And that was really disheartening. Since that moment, he has barely given Garland an inch of space to breathe.
Mhm.
And you've seen that this year where it's like, I think Quickly still like his elite trait is a help defender, but that shouldn't fool people that when this guy, like when Tibbs, and I think it is a Tibbs thing too, like Tibbs, I think people wants his defenders to play not conservative, but like his first go-to will not always be like ball denial and top lock, right?
Mhm.
But when he asked Quickly to do those things, I've seen him. This is not the first series. I've seen him like they were playing Patty Mills, and he wasn't gonna like play Patty Mills tight. He was gonna be mindful of helping on a screen or hedging and like allowing his guy to recover. But Patty Mills hit a couple of threes, and the rest of the game, I don't think he got a shut off because Quickly was just now you can say that's 85-year-old Patty Mills, but it's been multiple shooters that this happened with, and I think you saw that with like he was just in Garland's hip all series. That's not to take away from other like I thought RJ was great on Garland too, and to the extent that he did, Garland I think played really well and still got some, but that was a noticeable thing. Like you had seen Emmanuel Quickly just being an elite help defender, but I think this series, for anyone who's paying attention, also established him as an elite point of attack and ball denial guy too, which maybe was not quite as settled as the help defense.
Yeah, and I think I've noticed that too, and I agree with you too. I don't think that Tibbs typically engages in ball denial except for specifically like specific situations where he deems it necessary. But Quickly is so versatile that like he can play Tibbs's preferred style of defense, which is to set up, be ready, just be like in your spots and force guys where you want them, which is, funnel them into the paint, or just leave, the certain guy open from three or whatever the case may be, funnel them right into Mitchell Robinson and let that happen. Um, but like there were so many times where Quickly and I think Josh Hart to a degree too, were kind of in that mode of like, we're not going to let this guy get the ball. And we saw that more, I feel like, on the Cavs side. Like they were playing that style a ton, like basically every possession, it seemed like trying to keep the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands. Especially, they had guys like right up in him, like Isaac Okoro, like all the way up on him almost every possession, trying to make sure he couldn't get the ball. And the Knicks managed to, circumvent that. But then, I think the thing is like if you can break that, then you're in a good position because then you've probably set a screen or something to free that guy up that's being ball denied. And then all of a sudden, if that guy's talented enough to get by, then you can create some havoc because the defense then is tilted. The Knicks managed to really kind of strike a good balance. And to your point, Quickly is so valuable with that because he won't let whatever thing that gets the guy free to get the ball, if he's trying to ball deny, deter him from then sinking back into his position on defense and still defending the play as usual. Like he just basically never gives up on the play, which is part of what makes him such a fantastic defender. We've somehow gotten this far while burying a well, I won't even say somewhat, a definitely very significant story in this game. You alluded to it earlier, but we should probably get into it real quick. Julius Randle goes down in this game after 16 minutes, shoots 4 and 9. He was talking about guys that were having a renaissance. This was a renaissance game for him. It's really crappy timing that he got hurt again because after struggling ever since like the first half of game one, he was really starting to get his mojo back. It seemed like he had 13 points, 6 assists, 4 boards in just 16 minutes in the first half. He was cooking. He still couldn't hit a three, but he was getting inside at will, which is like the key for him to get going, especially with the way that he's played this year, where he's played a very inside out game of like either getting to the rim, drawing free throws, finishing there, or hitting 3-pointers. He was playing his brand of ball, at least what helped him be really good this year and make the all-star team again, potentially make an all NBA team when those get announced very shortly. I mean, it was just a really awesome first half for him. unfortunately lands on, I think it was Jared Allen's foot. Same exact situation as when he got hurt before, which is unfortunate. He steps on someone's foot. His ankle gave out. Did not look super pretty. He initially could not put any weight on it, and then got up, managed to very belaboredly take his way back to the locker room while walking on it, and got some treatment at halftime, but then came out in street clothes in the second half to cheer his teammates on, which uh, contrary to the guy in the YouTube comments that was arguing with me today, that was good of Randall to not sit back there and sulk or whatever, to still come out even if he's hurt, support his teammates as they closed out the series. But yeah, it's unfortunate that he got hurt. Obi Toppin though responded in a huge way, gets 12 points in the third quarter, and just brought all of the best things that make him a different but awesome complement to Randall. Where Randall plays, more his style ball, like more bully ball and some more ISO stuff like that. Obi was just like, we need to punch these dudes in the mouth to start the third quarter. Let me just get out, get in transition. He gets this windmill dunk like within the first couple minutes of being on the floor. Then hits a three at one point. I mean, I think he actually hit 2 of 4 threes, 5 of 10 shooting overall. I mean, I thought that he just had a an absolutely explosive little stretch there that really made a huge difference for the Knicks, because they weren't necessarily letting go of the rope, but they had sort of a little bit at some times before that. And then Obi just came in and was like, it kind of just set the tone for the rest of the game of like, we're not going to let you guys get this lead back, if at all. I think the closest they got was maybe 7 points, 9 points, and the Knicks would always find a way to answer. And Obi was sort of the first big part of that. But I guess, Stacey, two-pronged thing. How do you feel about Obi potentially going into the next round? And do you think the Knicks are still in okay shape without Randall? Because I think the biggest thing is behind Obi, you're going to have to start trying some new things in the playoffs, which is not fantastic because the Knicks did not do a ton of experimenting with like RJ at the 4, Hart at the 4, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think I will say I think they're reasonably comfortable with Hart at the 4. It's a position he's played before in other teams. They closed with that, which was, I don't want to say surprising, but I think it said a lot about how much faith Thibodeau had in Quickly, who, not to spend too much time on Quickly, but I will say it on Tibbs, right? Quickly took some shots today that a year or two ago would have had, Tibbs doing the Fred Sanford, the heart attack meme. But he let him play through a lot of, some up and down possessions, and I think Quickly rewarded his faith. And that was part of the reason Hart finished, because if he didn't have that faith in Quickly, Obi was going back in. I thought Obi was terrific. To answer your question, my question to you is, are we facing Giannis Antetokounmpo or are we facing Kevin Love?
Yeah.
My answer is completely different based on those two scenarios.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see. We're recording this as that game is going on. I haven't checked on a score update in a minute to see where that one's going right now, but we can
end of the third, Milwaukee is up 16. So
Milwaukee's up quite a bit. So I think that's still going to remain a mystery after today as to who the Knicks will be facing. And yeah, I mean, if you're going against Giannis, you definitely want as much depth as you can. And I honestly think that Randall would be the ideal matchup there because he is a much better individual defender.
To the extent that you can ever have an ideal matchup against Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, but like, yeah, exactly. But I think that he would be the better matchup because I think that you're exposing yourself to potentially getting your only true power forward into a lot of foul trouble if you're facing Giannis. Whereas I actually think Obi would be probably better to face against Kevin Love, where then it's like, all right, you can basically just stick to him on the perimeter. He doesn't have much beyond that at this point in his career. So just hang with him out there and you should be all right. And Obi's so good at playing passing lanes and stuff like that I think that they'd be more okay in that case. Well, let's see what happens. I mean, obviously we talked enough about the long odds of getting out of a 3-1 hole with the Cavs versus the Knicks, where we were like, well, there you go. Like the Knicks are up 3-1. That means they have about like a like a 90, 95, whatever it is, % chance of winning this series. The Bucks, though, are not your average team that's in a 3-1 hole. They're a number one seed.
They're in a 3-1 hole partly because they're missing Giannis for so much of that.
Who's like a multi-time MVP and perennial MVP candidate, obviously. So yes.
It's a different situation. I still expect Milwaukee to get through.
Yeah.
But getting back to Obi, I thought he was. It's nothing that the guy steps up to the occasion. It's a lot of advanced stats guys will be like, well, I have made this case, right? Where I made this case with Deuce McBride that Deuce McBride was a 40% 3-point shooter in college. Good free throw shooter. You watch him shoot, Alex, maybe if you disagree, you can feel free to disagree. Mm-hmm. His shot looks pure. There's nothing wrong with his form, but he shoots 20 whatever from 3 because he comes in and he takes 1-3 a game in a few minutes and he goes back. What I felt is that, when you don't have that quick hook, when you don't have the fear, you're going to shoot better. And I think that is applied to Obi. He shot 40% from 3 last year after he got to play. Shooting the ball better now. It also weirdly feels like almost every 3 he has is either a swish or an air ball. Like there's no bricks off the rim, it feels like. Mm-hmm. But he had like a nice little pull up over Jared Allen in the mid range where I was like, when he took that, I was like, oh God. And I was like, oh, okay, that was clean. He can pass. He's just an extremely reliable player, runs the floor. And his defensive impact was really, I think, because his role is a little simplified. And I think Mobley is a good matchup for him, weirdly enough, on defense, because Mobley can't bully him, and Mobley isn't a 3-point shooter. So Obi can aggressively play the passing lanes and not really have to be worried about much that Mobley can do. There were probably involved to him, but I mean, and it shows like the mental tough. Like nobody pouts or gets down on themselves, right? Early in the season, quickly wasn't getting minutes. He was in trade rumors. Bounces back to be the 6th man of the year runner up. Obi Toppin probably is overqualified for the role he's played. When he's needed, he comes up and shows up big. Randall had the season from hell last year, came back to have the season he did. Really poor game 4, comes back, gives us this in the first half. Everyone on this team, it's the whole team. There isn't a player on this team you can't name who has shown just incredible mental fortitude. And that's why, when Isaac Okoro starts to hit threes and it's getting to 7 and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are starting to get going, the team don't flinch. They don't back down. They have a ton of depth. They believe in each other. I think Josh Hart in many ways was, I don't know if it's the final piece for winning a championship, but it definitely was like the final piece to like make this team truly realize what it is right now. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about Josh Hart at all, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I think he had the most Josh Hart stat line, like 4 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 40 something minutes. Everybody contributed. Everyone who played contributed, right down to Deuce McBride, and probably the most impactful 5 minutes I ever saw in game 4, where it looked like Donovan Mitchell wanted to do anything else but have to go up against Deuce McBride. And Obi's one big part of that. We'll see what happens. He's up for extension this year. If they're sold on Randall, I would imagine it's going to be tough to hold on to both of them. But I'll as long as it's not Brooklyn or Boston, I'll be rooting for that guy. Even if it's Boston, man. At this point, how can you not root for Obi Toppin? He's just always had a great attitude, plays 100% all the time. Really fun player. He had a windmill on the road. I think a lot of people didn't mention this. He played college and he played at Dayton, right? Mm-hmm. So in a way, this was a bit of a homecoming of sorts for him. So it was nice.
Clyde mentioned it. Clyde mentioned it like 3 times every single broadcast.
I was not watching the MSU broadcast. So
he listened. He played school right in Ohio, folks. He loves being here. He loves it here. He mentioned it like 4 times a game. He's amazing. But this whole team is amazing. We didn't really bring up Brunson either, but we're kind of running short on time here. But 23 points for Jalen Brunson as well. 8 of 22 shooting, but that doesn't really underscore just the sheer amount of attention that he got in this game, which is to say that he had to fight 1, 2, 3 defenders pretty much every single possession. And just by virtue of even getting shots up, he was setting up the team for that huge amount of offensive rebounds that they got, which one more time, that's 17 for the Knicks. versus just 4 offensive rebounds for the Cavs. If that stat doesn't basically underscore this series, then I don't know what does. But Stacey, I think we got to wrap up for this episode, although certainly would love to have you back soon to talk more about maybe the next round series. But in the meantime, do you want to just remind everybody where to find you online and everything again?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this, by the way, this is the first time we've been on a pod for a while. I think
Yeah.
the last few times I've done LOK has actually been with Gavin. So great to do a pod with the Strickland Godfather, as always. And yeah, you can find me at Stacey Patton 89, and the Believe Knicks podcast. And I would say, just to plug, I would plug. I don't think the recap is out yet. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, the recap will probably be up by this time this is out. Anyway, look out for the Game 5 recap and read all the recaps that Matt Miranda has been doing. Because aside from this being a very unique situation where the Knicks are not only winning a first-round series but dominating, we have like an elite writer writing about it. So I personally, as a Knicks fan, feel really lucky to read that. And so I'd plug, just check out Matt Miranda's recaps and a lot of the other great stuff we have coming out of the Strickland. So
I would also co-sign. Always read Matthew Miranda. That's the number one rule. So we'll give one more Twitter plug. Matthew at Matthew E Miranda on Twitter, or just search for Matthew Miranda on the Strickland. You don't have to look too far because Miranda writes pretty much like 80% of the recaps, and they are all absolutely fire. So definitely do that. But thank you so much, Stacey, for popping on. Thank you all for listening. And we got plenty more great coverage. I got a pretty cool tease. Gavin is going to have Dan Devine on tomorrow's episode. And so that should be pretty cool. He's getting recorded, I think, Friday morning and then drop it right away. So now it'll be previewing the second round because now the Knicks have moved on. So that's pretty awesome. So keep an ear out for that. Till next time, though, thank you all for listening. And I'll talk to you all soon. Peace out.